Toys and games are things that remind us all of our own individual childhoods, but sometimes they go out of fashion. That's not always the end of the story, though, because sometimes they go back into fashion, allowing a new generation to discover them. Make sure you watch to the end to find out how a 90s classic is taking kids today by storm. If this is your first time visiting us at The Things, then you should give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. Today we're looking at old games that are wildly popular again. Super Nintendo. One of the best-selling, most successful, and best-loved video game consoles of all time is the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. This system helped define the 16-bit era of gaming. Although to modern eyes, its graphics and sounds can seem to be a bit old-fashioned, they were cutting-edge when it was released in the early 1990s. Its Mode 7 graphics feature meant some games had a spiraling, rotating feeling that is still remembered as being ahead of its time today. Did you know that the system was called the Super Famicom in Japan? That's because the old Nintendo Entertainment System, the 8-bit NES, was called the Famicom there. And in case you're wondering why that was called that, it's short for Family Computer. Despite the sheer popularity of the SNES, it was so popular that its main rival, Sega, trailed way behind it. Although Sega's Genesis, the 16-bit machine known as the Mega Drive in the UK, sold 29 million consoles, that figure was dwarfed by the SNES's 49.1 million. But as times changed, Nintendo changed with them, and with new systems like N64, GameCube, and Wii, the SNES became obsolete. But when Nintendo announced it would be making an all-in-one SNES Mini One in 2017, it was hugely successful. The console sold out in a matter of days as people shelled out to play the games that had kept people enthralled 25 years before.
Hey guys, we are so excited to announce we are producing our own original content. Head over to The Trendy for the best DIYs, fashion tips, makeup hacks, and so much more. We are sure you're going to love it, and be sure to let us know what you think in the comment section. We love to hear from you. See you there.
My Little Pony. My Little Pony was a genuine 80s classic of children's toys. The little figures were a gigantic success. Launching in 1983, the little equine figures sold millions of copies all around the world and spawned an iconic children's TV show. However, times change, and so do trends. And by 1991, kids, the vast majority of whom were girls, had moved on from the toys. And while there were attempts to relaunch them in the late 1990s and early 2000s, it seemed as if they would never recreate their iconic status they had enjoyed when they first came out. But that was before the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic cartoon series came out. It was this show that reignited the brand and won it a whole new generation of fans in the process. This meant, in turn, that new toys based on the cool, stylized, psychedelic new ponies were once again a must-have item. People were not expecting that, nor some of the new fans the brand was attracting. We think that the biggest surprise was that My Little Pony, so often seen as a thing for girls, would attract a range of male fans, known as bronies. These young and not-so-young men help blow apart gender stereotypes. And now it was both boys and girls playing with My Little Pony. Furby. When it comes to crossing over traditional soft toys with high-class technology, we don't think anyone has ever bettered the Furby. These toys were a big, big deal back in the late 90s. They were fluffy, and they looked sort of like a cross between a hamster and an owl. But that wasn't all. No, Furbies, made by toy giant Hasbro, could also interact with you. They spoke a strange language called Furbish, but as you played with them and interacted with them, they would pick up words in English too. When your Furby told you that it loved you, trust us, your heart melted. They were so big, their success had some unintended consequences. For instance, there was a belief that Furbies could record certain words. This was, understandably, a bit of a concern in places where it may not have been a good idea to have things committed to tape, or Furby. One of these places was the American National Security Agents. Washington bosses were so concerned about this that in 1999, staff were banned from bringing their Furbies into the office. However, the worries were unfounded because actually, Furbies weren't able to record things. But it looked like these robot toys were in some way losing their edge. But that was until 2012, when a new line of Furbies was brought out. Changes in technology meant that they could be linked with smartphone technology. This meant that a whole new generation was able to enjoy Furbies. Guess who? Here at The Things, we do enjoy trying to solve a puzzle and work out someone's identity. We're pretty good at it, if we may say so ourselves. Some of our team like to put it down to hours of playing the classic game, Guess Who, when we were kids. If you've never played it, here's how it works. There are 2 players. Each one of them has to pick a card with someone's face on it. Both players have a board with 30 different faces on them, and they have to try to work out which person they've got based on their appearance. Trust us, it's really good fun. It was something that children who grew up in the 1980s loved. There's an argument to be made that it was the last great family board game before video game consoles sprung up everywhere. But video games and other newer games meant that the popularity of Guess Who declined in the 1990s. It probably didn't help that the game could have had a bit more diversity. At one point, there were 19 male characters, but there were only 5 female faces to choose from. However, the game managed to revamp and renew itself, and managed to get some special editions. Franchises like Disney, Star Wars, and even Burger King have all got in on the action. Tamagotchi. If you grew up in the 1990s, then we think there's a really big chance you owned a Tamagotchi. These virtual pets were everywhere. In case you don't know what a Tamagotchi is, we'll tell you. It was a small, oval-shaped LED computer screen on a keyring. And on the screen, there was a little cartoon pet. What you had to do was to feed your Tamagotchi, clean up after it, play with it, and make sure it got enough sleep. Sounds simple enough, but here's the big thing. If you didn't look after it properly, your Tamagotchi would die. And when that happened, it was absolutely heartbreaking. So you had to make sure that you gave it its medicine if it got sick, too. It was a fun challenge, and one which millions of people responded to across the world. However, like so many other things, Tamagotchis became less ubiquitous as years went on. They were still being made by Japan's Bandai company, but they weren't as big a deal as they had been when they came out in 1996. But all that changed in October 2017. That's when old-fashioned Tamagotchis, just like the ones that became famous more than 20 years before, were released. Suddenly, everyone got their own Tamagotchis again, but that got us wondering, what else from the 1990s would you like to see make a comeback? Don't be shy. Let us know in the comments. And that's all for our old games that are wildly popular again. If you enjoyed watching this, then check out 10 Paw Patrol dogs all grown up. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.